In my eyes, one of the more unsung auteurs to come out of Japan, particularly in terms of animation, is Naoko Yamada. Now, I think most people are familiar with her work, whether it be A Silent Voice or Liz and the Bluebird or even the K-On! Movie, due to the countless iconic productions she's been a key part of throughout many decades. So when I say unsung, I don't exactly mean her popularity as a director, but rather just the clarity put around her name. As when people think of animation auteurs, their immediate names are ones like Satoshi Kon, Hayao Miyazaki, or even Makoto Shinkai. And obviously those are great names, they're great artists, but rarely do you ever hear Yamada's name brought up in these mixes, despite her catalog having that distinct feeling, look, and style to it that few filmmakers can replicate, and of course the quality and impact of her work as well, as I do believe she is one of the most important filmmakers in animation working today, despite her voice only truly emerging in cinema very recently. I wanted to talk about her in particular today because she very recently just released her newest film, her fifth feature, The Colors Within, which I had the pleasure of seeing in theaters, albeit a bit later than everyone else did because I was busy with Sundance. And this new film of hers in particular opened my eyes to a lot of what really makes me like Naoko as an individual artist and filmmaker. I wouldn't say it's her best work, but I do think it's a good eye-opener to what exactly makes her different from her peers, as it is kind of a grounds for her to do a lot of more original stuff. Many would chalk it down to the thin line work and pastel color style in her visuals, which are certainly a big focus in her more recent works, as she's gotten more creative control in her directing. But more importantly, despite less emphasized by people, is her fascination with sound and music in her films. It takes a quick glance to see that Naoko Yamada's filmography is heavily defined by stories with some correlation to sound or music. A doomed departure between two girls in the same band class, a movie spin-off of one of the most popular girls in a band anime of all time, and now we're here, three aimless youths starting a band to cover up their concerns for the world around them. I mean, even outside of music, sound is still a key point in everything else she does. A Silent Voice is the most obvious example of this in how it utilizes silence to weigh a scene. In my eyes, and in my ears most importantly, Yamada's most defining detail in her works is sound design and score. And I think that the reason why my eyes were open to this specifically for The Colors Within is because of the fact that it is the first Yamada film that I have actually seen in theaters. Everything else I've obviously seen at home. And let me just say, my home speakers and movie theater speakers are very different and give you way different experiences. So this is the first time I'm truly experiencing the sound of Naoko Yamada in full effect. Atmosphere is something that gets thrown around a lot in film discussions, which makes the word start to lose some of its meaning, but the sound, or sometimes the lack of sound, and the scores of Yamada's works almost always play the biggest factor in the atmosphere of her work. It directly links to the visuals of her movies, and I wanted to use this as my way of opening up this review because it was the thing that caught me the most about The Colors Within. Not the visuals, not the animation, not the story, though those are also done very well, but just the way the movie sounds. One key part of The Colors Within's story is the protagonist Totsuko's ability to see and feel people as colors, to feel a visual without seeing it. And while this is entirely just me speaking from my experience with the film, and likely helped through viewing it with the privilege of high-functioning theater speakers, the soundtrack almost feels like this ability coming to sound. Like each song paints the vibrancy of the world we're experiencing on screen, as if it's tied directly to the color and look of it. Of course, music is a key part of all movies, that is just how cinema works. But in Yamada's work, and especially through Colors Within, it feels so tied down to the visuals, to the characters, and to this one particular quirk surrounding color that it almost feels like a visual symphony. They play a lot with ambient music and reverberating noise that really tickles your eardrums to give you the feeling that you're experiencing the world through the character's own ears. Early on in the film, we see Totsuko searching around the school for her missing classmate Kimi, only to learn from her friends that she's dropped out of school entirely. What follows is this sequence of match cuts of Totsuko in various locations, painted by different colors and landscapes, processing this information. And while she does so, the ambient yet disorienting reverb around her creeps in more and more before smash cutting away with the rest of the sequence. And I think this is one of the most important scenes in the film when discussing its sound design. I don't think playing around with noise and reverb is particularly new, but Yamada directs it in such a unique way that it feels like its own character, that it feels like the world itself. Noise feels alive in this film. The music is pretty minimalistic, and yet it still feels so vibrant and full of humanity that it impressed me in very small ways that very few films have. Most of the tracks in the soundtrack only last about a minute or even less than that, while still managing to bring forth a lot of audiovisual flair that gives you a glimpse of what this world looks and feels like without actually being able to see it. Like, the best way I could describe it is if I closed my eyes and just listened to the soundtrack, I could see exactly what Yamada was envisioning for the film. Kensuke Ushio's music connects directly with her style and visual language so well that they almost feel like the exact same person. Or the script feels exactly like the score, and the score feels exactly like the storyboards. It's all so simple, yet so sugary. And what I also noticed is a similarity with A Silent Voice and how it also plays with the lack of noise. And now, I could be wrong, or my ears could just not be working, but I notice in many scenes that there is a lack of, or at least a low volume of room tone in this film, which marks the more quiet scenes even more wept in peacefulness. If there's one word I'd use to describe the colors within, it would be cozy, as it is a truly comforting and peaceful experience to sit through. Not necessarily as escapist, but embraceful. It's something you could watch as you sink into your seat, stare all throughout, and be aware of all the silence and peace around you. There's still conflict, as all three of our characters are playing a trick game of doing what makes them happy, despite not being able to tell anyone else, not being able to be honest with anyone around them, out of fear of disappointing those that have raised them into the good people they hope to be. It's a conflict that many can relate to, a universal experience, which I think plays into just why this movie is as soothing as it is. The colors within, in concept, should just be your run-of-the-mill coming-of-age ensemble. It's a story that we've seen plenty of times to the point where it's become its own genre. And if you just looked at it through a screenwriting point of view, you'd question what exactly it brings to the table. But it's those quirks, that coziness, that Yamada flair, and that audible link between the music and picture that makes this feel fresh and full of solace. Yamada takes a concept that she knows has been done before and still gives it a go to experiment with a project that's much less focused on story than it is focused on sensing things, feeling the picture, hearing the sound. It's one of those films that just plays with your senses to give you an experience you wouldn't get out of whatever else comes out of the genre. And that's something that I find very prevalent in her films. Atmospheric focus works with less focus on talking rather than simple, everyday life and actions, which, you know, isn't for everyone, but it's through her masterful display that makes this feel just a little different. Again, I wouldn't say this is her best film, as I found it to be just done a bit better in her more broad films like A Silent Voice. I mean, I didn't go to Catholic school, nor have I particularly faced most of the struggles the main cast face, so whilst I don't specifically relate to them that deeply, they're universal enough to connect with me as they can for all others, regardless of what character it is. Though I will say my favorite is definitely Kimi. She's the coolest. I like her the most out of them. Colors Within has its own voice to it, or in better words, its own color to it. What that color is, I don't know. You kind of have to, listen for it. But that's the best way I can describe the feelings that this movie gave me, even though it sounded rather confusing now that I'm looking back at it. But regardless, it's another great addition to the small but ever-building catalog of one of Japan's most profound and sound voices and it makes me very excited for what she has planned to do in the future. Like, seriously, I want to watch all of this woman's films for the rest of my life. I hope she never stops working. But with that being said, that's gonna do it for my video on The Colors Within. This was much less of a review than it was just me talking about what I like about Yamada's style, so I'm probably not going to title this video as a review because that's kind of misleading, but it is a great film and you should all definitely watch it. Like, seriously, it's very pretty, very colorful, and once again, it is audibly stunning. It's very difficult to describe feelings that this movie gives me just as it is to describe with basically everything Yamada has done. So really, just watch her movies. Watch all of them, all 5 of them, which also means you kind of have to watch a few shows she's worked on too beforehand, but still, watch everything that Yamada has worked on. If you have seen everything she's worked on already, then, well, comment down below your favorite film of hers or your favorite show that she's worked on. And if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.